Hello and welcome. My name is Goodman, aka Trey Goodman, and this is my educational leadership portfolio, and I'm about to present it to you through this great screencast-o-matic technology thing. Basically what we're looking at here is my portfolio, complete, lacking a presentation that goes right here. Right? So we're doing that, and what we're seeing now what I'm doing now will end up going right in this little slot that says presentation. The very first thing we want to check out here is my vision statement. My vision statement I broke down into a philosophy of education and philosophy of leadership. Basically, my philosophy of education is that, of course, education is one of the most important things, and it equals a lifetime of success. We need to make sure that every student that comes through our doors wants to become lifelong learners so that they can have a lifetime of success. My philosophy of leadership is to lead by example, to get into the weeds if necessary, just something my wife says a lot. She's an accountant. She gets in the weeds of accounting a lot. You got to set the example. You got to be a strong leader, and your strong leadership should encourage your staff to be a strong leader as well. I have the vision of the learner. Every student can learn, no matter anything, regardless of their background, or disability, or social economic status. Every student can learn. It's up to the teachers to reach them, and any teacher, under my vision of teachers, can be effective. As leaders, we need to recognize our teachers, hold them accountable for student outcomes, but recognize them when they do reach those outcomes. Develop a shared vision with those teachers for the campus so that we can all be successful. My vision of the organization is the school will be safe. The top two things really don't matter if we don't have a safe school. And safety is more than just physical safety. Safety also includes our emotional and social and mental safety. We want to feel safe on all fronts so that we're willing to take risks. We're willing to be creative. We're willing to try new things. Below that, we have vision of professional growth. I expect all teachers to grow, and personally will lead by example and grow myself, being at the forefront of all new instructional strategies, instructional practices and trends, and allowing teachers to take professional growth risks. Below that, you'll find my concluding thoughts. Basically, it talks about safety and the safe environment and positive attitudes together build lifelong learners capable of succeeding in the future. I remember a story about a speaker named Angela Meyer. She has a project called something about knowing your genius. Basically, the idea is that everyone's a genius. And she presents this idea in a way where she's in a classroom and she asks students to raise their hand. She asks them questions. Are you a genius? The first classroom, every student raised their hand. The second classroom, not a single student raised their hand. The difference? One classroom was full of kindergartners. They all raised their hand. And one classroom was full of high schoolers. They did not. Her idea here is that everyone actually is a genius. And the kindergartners are right. We're all a genius at something. And under my philosophy and my vision, I believe that we should be able to unlock the genius in any student and make sure they do succeed. And make sure that they're all raising their hands, even when they're in high school, not just when they're in kindergarten. Below that, we have the goals and plans to earn distinguished status as principal. This is right there. Becoming a distinguished principal is a very important thing. Basically, under this, we looked at the demographics of my current campus, Morton Ranch Junior High, and the first 5 competencies we looked at the indicators and determined which indicators that we can use to, closing achievement gaps, providing professional development opportunities for teachers and staff, continuously improving campus by being solution-oriented, always practicing positive ethics, things of that nature, to become a distinguished principal under the TPES rubric. Below that, we have my portfolio competency and artifact records. You can see here that the record sheet, I actually hit every indicator under each competency. Many of the projects and the assignments that we completed over the year definitely encompassed many competencies and many portions of those competencies, and you can see that throughout the thing. Domain 1 is competencies 1 through 3 in school community leadership, and which you can see here. Domain 2, instructional leadership, competencies 4 through 7. Again, and sometimes you'll see duplicates of work, like exploring TPES is on the first 5 competencies. And then domain 3 of administrative leadership, there are again several things in every single competency is hit. And I'll go more in depth about each competency and what projects and papers I worked on this semester, or this journey, more than a semester, these 2 years. Let's move on to Domain 1, School Community Leadership. Domain 1 basically is the idea that, I think what I got out of the most is about creating a school vision and creating that vision with your staff and with the community and working with the community and bringing the community into the school and always working together. There was a couple of assignments that I did, about school vision. One of such was the very first one was the lit review assignment, which is probably like the first big project I remember doing and stressing over during the master's process. And that project was about the literature on how the top 10% rule in Texas for public universities, puts stress on the mental health of our high schoolers and how it may not be that healthy for them. And so it was kind of like developing a vision where let's have a school where we're not draining the mental health of our students. It might be a little bit beyond me since that is actually a state law. Some other stuff where getting community involvement and stuff like that, canvassing my community was very cool. I went to local communities around Morton Ranch, junior high, and you can see campus community there in competency 2, and, learn what they did for the community, how they worked with the students, what students they worked with, all sorts of things like that. Competency 3, which mostly covers, acting with integrity and fairness and ethical and legal. And it makes me think about all of the court cases that we covered over the summer, some of the most interesting and actually kind of rigorous but yet interesting work that we did all year about the different court cases and things like that help shape and develop the laws that govern education in this country and in Texas. I also talk about one thing I'm most proud of. The projects I'm most proud of is the service learning project that we did, where I went up to the local high school. I work at Morton Ranch Junior High. I went to Morton Ranch High School and ran every week for the first 5 months, the first semester of the school year with students. And then it ends it's called Katie Students Runs, and this whole project ends with running a half marathon with one of these students. It was amazing. I ran with a student named Mohammed. He was awesome. I got to know him so well over our 2.5 hour run through downtown Houston. It was the coolest thing ever, and I'm going to be doing it again next year, so very cool. But yeah, that was basically my reflection on Domain 1 and Domain 2. Domain 2 is instructional leadership, and I am an instructional coach, so I feel that instructional leadership is one of my biggest strengths. I mean, I conduct PLCs and all sorts of different stuff on a daily basis. But I thought that it was the stuff that we learned, I really enjoyed the analyzing, the school analysts of change and the school implementation of change. Not only do we get to like, figure out what needed to be changed on a campus. We got to actually suggest how to change it. I think that mine was, I know that mine was at my previous campus, Beck Junior High, and it had to do with reading scores and things like that, and using actual data to analyze why she changed. And then my implementation of the change was a reader's workshop, which is a new instructional strategy that allows kids to kind of like learn to love to read again, which is kind of rare nowadays. I mean, actually, not as rare. Kids are learning to read more and more, and that's because of educational strategies like Reader's Workshop, where kids get to choose their own book and things of that nature. Another very cool thing, and actually one of the more challenging courses, was it was actually our final summative assessment for the theory and research course. In this course, and you can see a lot of these examples here, all the different stuff that we did. But basically the idea here was that there was a third grade team that was randomly assigned their teachers versus what the school usually does, which was specifically assign the teachers for their third graders, and to see how that improved or didn't improve student outcomes in mathematics. So it was very cool, but I thought it was very cool and very challenging. That particular study actually didn't show anything, so the instructional program would have to continue to see if there's any actual data that supports, having students randomly chosen to a course. That brings us to domain number 3, administrative leadership. When I think of administrative leadership, I think of the kind of, what a principal was when I was a kid, or even before I was a kid, where they just managed the building. I remember never seeing my high school principal. No idea. Barely knew what he looked like. The only reason I knew what he looked like is because he lived on the same street as me. But I never saw him at school. And that's because he was, a building manager. He managed the budget. He managed the staff. He did things like that. And that's, what principals, I guess, used to do before they got involved in instructional leadership and community leadership. But still, this is one of the ones that I felt like maybe I needed the most work on, because I am, as a teacher, not very aware of budgeting, not fully aware of school finance. But thanks to the budgeting and finance course, not only do you learn about the different things that are going on at the state legislature as far as school finance is concerned, we got to attempt these problem of practice, where there's a real life scenario and you're the principal and you get to go out and you get to make decisions and try to determine what's the best course of action for your school, staying within the laws and the scope of these scenarios, which I thought was very cool. Another thing that, course that we did that kind of deals with this, off of the budget and finance, is all the other parts of the school nurse, the transportation, the, let's scroll up and read it here, right? Managing the staff, utilizing resources and technology, all of those things, counseling and all of those things. And that was a course, that I thought was really good over the summer. That was administration of school services. And, we got to do projects about nurses and all sorts of different stuff that was really, really, helpful, and seeing all the different parts of a school. The last thing I want to show you here is our, growth recommendations. And this is the, basically the final assessment from our, administration of school services. And it was about a rural, school district in Texas. And we had to analyze what that school district does and how we could help recommend improvements to that school. Like, they didn't have a uniform hiring practices, and it was tough for them to keep staff and all this stuff, and how, it was a very good learning experience to see how they do those things and how we can improve those schools with what we've learned during the course, and during the whole cohort for that matter. Anyway, that's my portfolio, and I appreciate you guys listening, and thank you so much for the opportunity, and I'll see you